Hey everybody, welcome back to the K2N Online Paddle School. We're back here on YouTube, and this week we're talking about getting more pressure, more power on the power face of the blade. So it's a common terminology when we are looking at paddles, that the side of the paddle that is facing us, that is traveling towards us as we complete strokes, this is the power face of the blade. When we talk about finding more pressure and making a better connection with the water and pulling more water or grabbing more water and some of these vague terms, what we are trying to do is centralize more force on this part of the paddle. And if you were to put force on the opposite side of the blade, you would be taking a back paddle stroke, right? So as we go through forward strokes, we're trying to do the same exact idea on the power face of the blade. It is very easy to lose sight of the goal of a paddle stroke. It is very easy to get lost in the weeds in a lot of details, ideologies, angle potentials, and so on. And breaking it down into the most simple of terms, when we are wielding this tool, the more force that we can get on this side of the blade as we take a stroke, the faster that you are going to move a craft. The more muscles that you can use to interact with the paddle to put force on this side of the blade, the faster you will go. Every tip that you get should allow you to move with more muscles and more joints and more fluidly, and to wield the tool in a way that puts more force on the power face of the blade. So I keep reiterating this power face of the blade, right? As it travels towards us, the more force that we can get on it, the faster that you go, right? Because it's a very simple concept, right? We're trying to take a stroke, trying to find pressure on this side of it. But there are many people, when they take paddle strokes, that is not the goal of their movement. When you stop and look at exactly what you're doing, you are going through motion that does not equate to energy specifically being here. And this poses a major problem. You go through all this motion, you go through all these ideas, all these concepts seem to make sense in your mind, but we don't get pressure here. So the boat doesn't go forward fast, and your performance is highly limited because of this limiting factor. We have to wield this tool, the paddle, in a very specific way to put pressure here. So it's very important to define where we're trying to centralize our energy in the stroke in order to lead to these next ideas. So this next one is an exercise that I love to do in person on land. The person will be sitting on a bench or a chair wielding a paddle, and they go through and they get to the front part of their stroke. The objective is I am holding the tip of the blade and I need them to rip this blade out of my hand, right? We are in a game of tug of war, and if they can win the tug of war, the paddle will come out of my hand. If they don't create enough force on the power face of the blade, I can hold the paddle with one finger with no problem, right? But if they create the proper force that we're looking for, I have to hold on with my whole hand and I'm shaking, and I have literally slid on the ground when people do these ideas effectively. I am mirroring water. I am the resistance of water. When I'm holding the paddle, water provides you this same interaction and the same grip. And this is what we're trying to achieve with the paddle stroke. If you find no pressure and I win the tug of war, water wins the tug of war, meaning you're not going anywhere. But if you can win the tug of war, it means that you are propelling the craft forward. We have the blade out in front of us, and the goal is to get the blade to come back. When it comes back, there is pressure on this side of the blade here. So if I line up this way and I push forward with my torso, I don't have pressure on this side of the blade as it goes this way, right? You can see how my finger has no resistance on it. The only time my finger has resistance on it is when the paddle travels back. You can see my hand is moving. This paddle is winning this tug of war, versus if I slide this way, there's no resistance on my hand and I'm not engaging with the water at all. This is the first aspect, is if your blade goes into the water this way, there is no pressure on the blade on the power face. The only way that you get pressure on the power face of the blade is as it comes towards your body. So even in the water, this is one you can practice. Set up, put the blade in the water, go up and down. And you know what? Do it one more time for good measure. And then when you're all done, you'll be in the same exact spot. If you set up and start pulling even just a little bit and taking a stroke that is only this long, after 3 strokes, you'll be gliding forward. You are interacting with the water, you're putting pressure on the power face of the blade, and you're moving the boat forward. Even only interacting with a small percentage of the blade, as long as there is some force somewhere on the paddle, on the power face, you'll propel forward. We have a previous video topic talking about not worrying about blade angles so much. We are just trying to achieve a stroke, and the more force that we can get on this side of the paddle, irrelevant to the position of the paddle, will propel you forward. So using this example, when somebody is holding the tip of the blade, if I try to keep the paddle perfectly neutral and vertical the entire time, the only way that I can interact with the paddle is by pulling back with both my arms and my body this way. So if you have a friend holding the tip of the blade and you try going back like this, you are going to lose the tug of war and they are going to rip this paddle out of your hand. Because you are trying to maintain a very specific angle, because the concept works well in your mind, it means that your body gets severely out of position and you are not in a position to get pressure on this side of the blade, and water or your friend can rip the paddle from your hand. We want to win this tug of war, right? I want the paddle to fly out of their hands. I want to be the one that is creating more force. So if I'm trying to get the paddle from their hand out of their hand, which way does my paddle go? It goes this way. If you're concerned about negative blade angles, you are concerned about completing a realistic full stroke, and now you can never get to this end position here. You can never get the force on the power face of the blade equivalent to somebody that is going from here to here. The amount of force that is on this paddle on this side of the blade is tremendous as I go through that motion. If I try to go through it this way, I am limited in how my body can operate. So now I'm limited on how much force is on this part of the paddle, the power face of the blade, that moves you forward. And I keep reiterating, it is very simple to think. Get pressure on this side of the paddle as we are taking strokes. When we have the blade travel towards us, there is pressure on this part of the paddle. You can hear it knocking on my hand. Even when the paddle is negative, it still hurts quite a bit to have this hitting my hand because there's still pressure on this side of the blade. Anytime there's pressure here, you move forward. Getting too wrapped up in the blade angles would be saying, I can only get force on the paddle up here, and the force that I find back here isn't real, and the force I find back here is only a fairy tale. But the reality is there is pressure on this paddle in all of these different angles if you're wielding the tool correctly. The more force that you have here, the faster that you're going to move forward. So the last idea that we're going to go through is understanding that the paddle going from in front of us to behind us keeps pressure on the power face of the blade. There are two ways that we can get the paddle to go from this position to this position. One would be pulling with your bottom arm, which also solves the riddle when you watch an arm paddler go disproportionately fast to what we perceive speed to be. Arm paddling gets you enough pressure on this blade to move you faster than somebody that is not getting the same force adhering to better concepts. But the more effective one is as this handle travels away from me, this paddle is going to go back. Pushing into the handle here is going to give me much more leverages with my body and the most return on your energy investment. The more energy that you put into this top handle pushing, the more force you're going to get on the power face coming back toward you. Positioning my hand to push, elbow to push, shoulder to push, hip to push, leg drive to power, all of this. All of a sudden, my entire body is pushing into this handle, and the amount of force on this side of the blade here is tremendous. So we set up positive blade angle, which sets the handle closest to me, which gives me the most amount of range of motion and force potential to push into the water here. More force that I have here, the more force I'm going to have on this end. It is just a lever that we are working for. If you are inhibited in moving your paddle in this direction because the paddle is not effective beyond a certain point, now you have put a major limit on how much force you can get on the paddle, because we can only get that amount of force on the blade before starting over, versus somebody going from here to there. There's a lot more force on this paddle here. Keep it simple. Don't worry about the angles of the paddle so much. Try to find pressure on the power face of the blade. The more your movements find pressure on this blade as it travels to you, the more effective of a paddler you will become. Excellent. Thank you guys so much for checking out the video. If you need any more in-depth help, check out the K2NOnlinePaddleSchool.com today. We have hundreds of videos that are organized numerically to help you understand concepts, implement them, pair those with drills, working with a coach, having a coach write you training programs, video reviews. There's everything you could need for remote training to be a major success. Big shout out to all of our YouTube members here. If you'd like to join the YouTube membership, it is $2.99 a month. You get to see these videos about a full month early. If you would like me to come to your area to do camps, clinics, group lessons, individual lessons. If you can help me organize a group, I can make the time to come to your area. If you would like to come down to Hernando, Florida, especially in the winter time, we have all kinds of different OC6 and dragon boats and surf skis and OC1s and OC2s and 1,000 different paddles. If you'd like to come down with a group or as an individual for an extended stay, feel free to reach out anytime and we can schedule that. Thank you all so much for the ongoing support, and we'll see you all next week for the next paddle tip video.